welcome to This Explainer. Look, I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're frankly witnessing something completely unprecedented. Everyone is talking about agents and self-driving back offices, but what happens when an AI literally runs a company 24/7 without even asking for your permission? To really understand this dawn of the headless enterprise, we've got to look way past the hype and examine the actual architecture making it possible.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the 2026 5tran and Redpoint Readiness Report hits us with a really uncomfortable truth right out of the gate. Autonomy without trusted data is just automated risk. The message here is stark. If your data's late, if it's dirty, or if it's locked inside vendor silos, well, you haven't created true autonomy. You've just automated your organization's risk. To unpack this massive shift, we're going to follow a clear 5-part structure today. First, the rise of the headless enterprise. Then, the great infrastructure deficit, followed by the cost of bad data. From there, we'll outline the agentic readiness blueprint. And finally, we'll explore the ROI convergence. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The rise of the headless enterprise. Right now, there is literally a silent war being fought across the global economy over autonomous business. Specifically, the Agentic AI DAO. And we aren't just talking about a chatbot predicting trends or drafting your emails. No, this is a self-sovereign corporate entity. It plans, it negotiates, and it executes complex real-world tasks, purely on code. We're talking about an entity that triggers real-world actions without a human finger ever touching a keyboard. To really grasp the stakes here, think of generative AI as a friendly advisor. If it hallucinates a paragraph in a draft, a human editor catches it, right? The risk is pretty superficial. But agentic AI? That is the executioner. It hooks directly into your enterprise data warehouse to wire money or execute supply chain trades. When the AI literally takes the wheel, the stakes change entirely. And this brilliantly illustrates how abstract concepts fundamentally rest on concrete data primitives. In DAO culture, we love to throw around big words like anonymity, autonomy, and automaticity. But anonymity requires verifiable state. Autonomy, it relies heavily on delegated execution, and automaticity is really just policy finality embedded directly in your data contracts. Section 2, the great infrastructure deficit. Time for a reality check. Stepping away from the techno-utopian hype for a second, the market is already voting with its wallet. Nearly 60% of major global enterprises are frantically pouring millions into building agentic AI. The ambition and frankly the FOMO at the top is absolutely massive right now. So the crucial point is this. When you ask a harder question about whether they are actually prepared, a mere 15% say yes. Only 15% actually possess the underlying data infrastructure to run these systems securely. Think about that. The industry is out here building massive autonomous rocket engines, but they are completely ignoring the fact that their data fuel lines are heavily contaminated. And here is the truly terrifying part. 41% of organizations are already using these agents in production. Right now, agents are live and making decisions on top of those contaminated fuel lines. The headless enterprise is arriving, but it's being built on infrastructure that was never designed for this level of autonomy. Section 3. The cost of bad data. So, what happens when autonomous execution meets poor infrastructure? Massive fallout. Gartner estimates that an incredible 40% of agentic AI projects will be completely canceled by 2027. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that the top barriers aren't the AI models themselves. Not at all. 42% of data leaders cite data quality and lineage as their top blocker. 39% point to sovereignty and compliance, and another 39% highlight security and privacy risks. It is entirely a battle over data governance. We have to remember that current large language models simply do not possess common sense. If you feed an agent corrupt or stale data, it cannot improvise. It doesn't gracefully adapt to fix a broken pipeline. It just acts on what it sees. The result? It industrializes mistakes at machine scale. We're talking about making devastating multi-million-dollar errors way faster than a human ever could. Section 4. The Agentic Readiness Blueprint. So how do we avoid these massive failures? Let's move to and see how this builds out, because elite data leaders are using a very specific framework. It's built on 4 brutally practical, non-negotiable pillars: freshness and reliability, transparent lineage, governance and sovereignty, and interoperability. Looking at pillars 1 and 2, batch processing is completely dead. If your data has a 24-hour lag, it's like sand slowly dripping through an hourglass. Your agent is flying totally blind in a moving market.
You need continuous zero-lag pipelines. You also need mathematical end-to-end lineage to trace exactly how an agent arrived at a decision, because without it, debugging or proving compliance is literally impossible.
Moving to Pillar 3, interoperability is absolutely critical. 86% of data leaders state that platform extensibility is vital, while 34% view old-school data integration as a massive vendor lock-in risk. Prepared organizations are demanding open standardizations like Apache Iceberg over proprietary layers. You have to be able to swap out an LLM vendor without having to replumb your entire corporate empire.
And finally, Pillar 4, sovereignty. Policy can no longer just be a PDS collecting dust in your legal department. It must be encoded directly into the data layer as strict access controls. If a vendor cannot enforce regional data sovereignty, 65% of leading enterprises will outright block them. Section 5, the ROI convergence.
Bringing this all back to financial outcomes reveals an absolutely astonishing market rift. Organizations that rushed into production with weak data infrastructure are trapped. Only 16% of them have high confidence they'll see a positive ROI. But look at the elite 15% who paused to build a resilient foundation. They are operating with an incredible 98% certainty of positive ROI, and they're achieving massive operational throughput.
It really all boils down to this simple truth. The AI model is fascinating, sure, but it is just a brain. To achieve true autonomy that actually compounds value, you have to focus on the nervous system. You must first pay the tax at the data foundation. I'll leave you with this provocative thought. You can join the huge chunk of the market running headfirst into the hype machine on fragile plumbing, or you can stand with the elite architects building a robust data spine. So, which side of the divide are you building your empire on? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go explore the full 2026 readiness report to evaluate your own foundation.